Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Jeffrey Halstead, DMD. Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram. Today we continue our series previewing local elections across the Finger Lakes by catching up with one of the candidates running for Canandaigua City Council. Donna Cator joins me via Zoom. Donna, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Josh. Looking forward to our discussion today.
So let's start here. What's your why? What's the reason you're running for office?
Well, I like to serve, and I love Canandaigua. I've lived here for over 30 years, and a couple of years ago moved into the house I plan to age out in. And I want to be part of the conversations and the solutions to make sure that Canandaigua continues to be the chosen spot for generations to come.
What are the biggest issues that you're hearing from voters as you go through this process of campaigning?
So what we hear from voters when I've been out campaigning is more around some of the issues you might not think about, like the lack of fireworks in the city. And that's really to be expected, right? They don't really understand the bigger day-to-day stuff that the council is responsible for. But those are important issues. And that's part of my platform, is to make sure that all of the voters in Ward 3 understand that I am going to listen to their issues and concerns. I'm going to bring them to the appropriate parties in the city to make sure that they're addressed. Can't always solve them, but then I will respond to them to let them know what's been done and what they can expect. So that's a big part, is communication, customer service, follow-up.
One of the biggest issues, obviously, that caught headlines over the last 4 or 5 months is infrastructure. Heavy rain and flooding this summer put a heavy emphasis on the city's infrastructure needs. What do you think needs to be a priority in 2024 and beyond? And how do you think the city should be approaching this in a long-term planning sense?
Yeah, so that was devastating, the floods of July 9th. And so I think that in 2024 and beyond, the city needs to make sure that we are collaborating with town, county, state. We need to make sure that we are looking for land to continue making sure we have these retention ponds, making sure that we're not city council so much, but that the parties responsible are applying for any grants that can be used, and that we continue to study, evaluate, and come up with newer solutions that will mitigate this, that we can't allow for this to happen anytime again in the future.
Obviously, another big issue is the long-term health of Canandaigua Lake. What do you think City Council should be doing, or how should City Council be watching the health of Canandaigua Lake, particularly when it comes to HABs as a water source? What's the main point there of emphasis for you?
Yeah, so the city, we definitely work with the watershed closely, and we are very lucky. I was in preparing for this interview, because of course I don't know everything. I don't know all these issues, but went on and I was interested to see that we get really good marks in our drinking water and the health of our lake. And so the storm management will help that, right? When we get a bad storm, a lot of bad stuff finds its way to the lake. And so part of that could be, what are people using on their lawns, right? So it's about educating. I'm not necessarily one for mandating, but it's to educate. I think everyone who lives in Canandaigua and the surrounding Finger Lakes area cares about the health of our lake. That's what drives people here, right? It's beautiful. We have a lot to offer. And so it's just making sure that our residents are educated so they understand that little changes in habits can make a big difference in the health of our lake.
And of course, you mentioned how beautiful the entire region is. Canandaigua is sort of the epicenter, or one of the epicenters of the entire Finger Lakes region. When it comes to economic development, what does successful economic development look like to you? What should be prioritized over the next 4 years?
Well, to me, successful economic development is making sure our downtown storefronts are filled, making sure that as we drive business here, little business, we don't have a lot of room for big business, but making sure that there's affordable housing for people so that they can live right here in the community that they're working in. But really, it's to make sure we have a thriving downtown, thriving restaurants, right? When people come to Canandaigua, whether it's to visit or to live, we want them to spend their money in Canandaigua.
Yeah. And you mentioned emphasis on small business, micro business, as many would refer to them, as opposed to trying to attract those big ticket industrial options. Should development, you mentioned downtown, is it time for the city in general to start looking away from the lake for development opportunities, and perhaps not emphasizing as much now that the lakefront is in really great shape and a destination for the city? Is it time to start pushing away from that and focusing more on, like you said, downtown and perhaps the neighborhoods as well?
So in my opinion, from an outside point of view, I would say yes. I think that we've already done a good job on the lakefront. That already drives people here. It's once people are here, we want them to stay here. We want them to walk along the main street. We want them to walk along the neighborhoods. So yes, that would be my emphasis as an outsider without knowing all the ins and outs, around the conversations. But that's why I want to be part of these conversations.
Of course. And naturally, some folks who visit here decide that they want to live here and live in Canandaigua. Whether we're talking about single family housing developments, rental prices, overpopulation of Airbnbs, or lack of senior housing options, which isn't as much of an issue in Canandaigua proper as other communities in Ontario County. What role would you like to see City Council play and take moving forward to potentially move the needle on some of these housing issues that we're seeing in Canandaigua and the surrounding communities?
Yeah, so I know just from keeping up on some things with City Council, they've tried to address some of the short-term rentals, the Airbnbs, so that people who need long-term rentals will have an affordable place. But it also has to go, a little deeper with, you have conversations with developers, and they feel like $400,000 for building a home is, a reasonable starting price. And to me, that's not really affordable housing. So I think it's with working with developers, working with just collaborating town, city, making sure employers understand how their wage impacts the area. It's everything. It's having these conversations and seeing what solutions can we all come up to together? And it takes time, right? Nothing happens overnight. It's baby steps. So every baby step, even if it's one little thing each year, over the long term will make a big difference.
A lot of reporting over the last few months about population decline. Obviously, census data is one thing, but we had a report a couple months ago that projected a 40% increase in seniors, 65 plus, living in the Finger Lakes by 2040, while all younger age groups were expected to decline by 7 to 14% in that same window. How can Canandaigua make itself a better destination for young people and, more importantly, young families?
Yeah, so I think that one is having good quality public education, and I think we already have that. So that's a big thing. Making sure that families feel it's a safe environment to raise a family, and I think we do a good job with that. But then the bigger issue is, and I know, I'm in that aging population, but I do have a 28-year-old daughter, and that generation is very city driven, right? They want to be able to go out in the evening and have fun things to do with other people in their same age group, whether it's wine tasting or dancing, sports events. So we are lucky. We have CMAC. We have the beautiful lake. We do have some breweries and wineries in the area. So it's just making sure that we have a lot of those little areas that drive young people, but it's still more bigger: safety, quality education, and making sure we maintain that.
Yeah. And then last here, another issue that falls sort of under the umbrella of all of these issues that we've talked about, EMS and fire service. Both of these services are essential to the people who live in Canandaigua, and they want to see these maintained. That's very clear. What's your philosophy here, and how do you think City Council should approach these two services in particular over the next 4 years so that they are able to be maintained? Because they are obviously very expensive services to maintain.
Sure. So one is, I feel that first responders are critical. And, I know studies have been done in the past that say, oh, this is the ample staffing. But I think that the conversation has to go beyond a study. The city has to have conversations with the EMTs or the EMS services and the fire services and even the police services. Get their feeling. Are we adequately staffed? And find out if they feel they're not, what are the issues? And then again, come up with, okay, what are cost-effective solutions? Maybe it's partnering with, a town, maybe it's a half-half, right? So it's just making sure that we're having the conversations. Nothing is stagnant, right? Demographics change, population change. You said it yourself. So we need to make sure that we are continually having these conversations, listening, and providing solutions together that work, because we need to feel safe in our neighborhoods. I mean, that's the bottom line. And not just us, the first responders have to feel safe, right? They have to make sure that when they're going in to fight a fire or responding to an accident, that they are safe. So it's a combination, and even one loss of life is too much due to understaffing or inadequate training or whatever the issue may be.
Absolutely. And last question here for you. What's your pitch? Why should voters choose you on election day?
First, I am not new to council. I served in 2015 filling a vacant spot that arose. And my plan initially would have been to rerun, but I ended up taking on the duty of president of Temple Bethel in Geneva. So I grew up in Geneva. And so I knew I wouldn't adequately be able to be president and serve on council. They're both time-consuming jobs. Well, now I'm ready to serve again. My daughter's grown and gone. I have time on my hands. And again, I feel strongly about making sure that Canandaigua remains the chosen spot. I want to be part of the conversations. I want to be part of the solutions. My entire career is in the customer service field. I work for Canandaigua National Bank as a wealth planning advisor. So I understand prioritizing needs over wants and wishes, but understanding that wants and wishes matter as well. I'll listen, I'll identify options. I'll compromise when appropriate. I think that's a very important component. And then we'll monitor and adjust as necessary. So I'm very proud of my long history of volunteerism and want to use my skills to have Canandaigua remain the chosen spot.
Donna, appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for taking it.
Thank you, Josh.
That'll do it for this edition of FLX Today. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.